Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcoring Guides, being my guide for Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge on Master Ninja difficulty. Today we are doing Day 2, Ayane. So that's what this one's going to be called. It's not going to be called Day 2 Part 2, it's going to be called like Ayane. Hopefully that later on makes more sense when we start going through these chapters, because the naming scheme's a little weird, but you kind of get used to it. But anyway, so starting off, pretty much what I do with her is I essentially just dodge around and pretty much try to predict, you know, SOBs like before. And then, of course, as you saw, I did throw a explosive kunai toward the first rocket guy that appears. I believe he appears either after a couple enemies have been killed or typically immediately right after. And Ayane is, in my opinion, a lot better suited for this game than she was in, like, 2. Personally speaking, I kind of like her better here. Probably just because of the Steel On Bone stuff that she can do. And, the first wave of enemies, although they might be some of the more basic enemies, this part can still be kind of a bit of a challenge just because of the fact that, you know, there's quite a bit of them, and plus they kind of surround you a lot. And that's where Ayane's UT kind of comes in handy, is because it's a really good spin attack that just kind of, you know, lifts an enemy in the air and does like an Azuna drop type thing. Now, this is where the fun really kind of begins, is understanding the UT a little bit better, and that's whenever you do her UT and you launch it and you're actually doing the physical UT itself, you can press and then hold triangle again while in air to do even a harder, like, Azuna drop to the ground. So that's something that you could do. And if I'm not mistaken, I think when you upgrade her to, like, level 2 kunai, or just regular weapons that she has, I believe that's when she can unlock, you know, her own Azuna drop, and then she can potentially still do the trick there too. But for the most part, Ayane combos, to kind of just go into explaining how I do them, I mostly stick with the same type of Ryu combos that I've normally stuck with for the past couple of videos now, which is essentially just like square, square, triangle, triangle stuff. So you'll be seeing me do that quite often. This is when things are going to get a lot more rough, and this is going to be the true point of understanding whether or not you're fully confident within your own skills in this game, is this entire chapter just in general, because fiends tend to show up. And notice how, real quick, I'm actually saving my Nimpo. And something else to kind of note too is I'm actually pressing the triangle button. I'm doing a dash in triangle button attack. I'm mostly going for heavy attacks. I'm not trying to go for light attacks. Now, there is something that you can do to fiends to sort of get them to not be too damaging. I didn't show it off the best there, but the thing that I usually end up doing to them is I usually hit them twice, either with typically with like a light combo, or sometimes, you know, with a heavy. It really kind of depends on what you want out of it. But after you do that, try to dodge behind them. It might sound really tricky and kind of weird. Just try to dodge behind them or to the side of them, and then just continue to attack, because you can sometimes put them in like a slight like stun lock and then get them that way. And then, of course, with this section right here, as you saw, I jumped out the door first thing, because there's a rocket guy right here. And luckily, Ayane's explosive kunais are usually typically just an insta-kill anyway. You don't even have to aim with it, unlike with Ryu, where typically with Ryu you kind of have to aim in. Something that you can do in this part, which I should probably just go more in depth real quick. Yeah, immediately, just as soon as you spawn in this room, just go straight for the right. When you're doing that dash underneath the door, you can change the trajectory of where you're going to dash in from. You have to do it before you dash underneath the door. You have to, like, face a certain direction to change it. So this room is very, very deadly, and immediately to your right, like I said, just start charging for the rocket guy, and then after that, take out the rocket guy on top. And once you start losing health and you're kind of afraid, either go ahead and upgrade your health now, because it doesn't really matter, it's Ayane, you only get like 2 chapters there anyway. Either upgrade your health right now. I say don't waste them, of course, like don't just upgrade it, but, you know, you use them sparingly, but you can be a little bit more lenient. At least save 1 for for her next day. But, yeah, and then after that, throw, you know, a kunai at the guy in the rocket guy in the top. The rocket guy will not appear anymore on top, at the very least he shouldn't. And then after that, start focusing on the fiend, and then just start trying to be as aggressive toward the fiend as you can. And like I said, either go for triangle attacks to kind of just hope, you know, that eventually you might just de-limb him, and then you can get that free OT right after, just to be on the safe side. And sometimes the triangle attacks of Ayane's aren't that bad, so it's not like it's going to completely kill you. But if you want to be more safe than sorry, then square attacks are also great. You could just go for like a full regular square attack combo, maybe with a triangle finisher, and then just keep being aggressive toward a fiend. It might sound counterproductive, but sometimes I've noticed it doesn't really show that well in this video specifically. But something that I've kind of noticed while playing the game more afterward is that being aggressive toward a fiend just the regular, like, big purple fiend guys. I think that's what they're called. I believe so. You end up kind of making them not attack and somewhat get like of a stagger. Something else I want to explain real quick. 3 things, actually. And for the most part, what I'm going to be doing here is just pretty much just UTs. I'm going to be relying on UTs and trying to get Steel on Bones. I'm not going to mess with these guys too much. I might go in for like a couple of counters, which that combo right there is actually pretty good. That one that kind of knocks them backward, I kind of like that one a lot. I think that's square, square, triangle, triangle. I believe that's just like the regular run-of-the-mill one that I tend to do quite often. Some of these have like dash-in combos too, which is pretty cool about Ninja Gaiden in general. Is like you can do a lot of interesting different types of combos. But one of the things I kind of forgot to explain about Steel on Bone and how to manipulate it even a little bit better is if you're charging a UT, enemies seem to tend to go for a red attack more often, and then you can just let go of your UT charge while they're trying to attack you. Also, I know that originally in the other games it was called ET for the first level, and then after that it was just generally called, like, you know, UTs after. But I think in this game, I think they probably just consider it just UT charge. Could be mistaken, but as far as I'm aware, I think it's just regular UT. Also, I have no idea to this day how to get that Crystal Skull. I apologize, but I don't know how. But if you know how, that's a good spot to get health back and maybe even Nimpo. So this next section here, which I'm going to explain the other 2 things in just a second, but this next section needs to be talked about real fast. And that is, of course, these dogs that spawn. So you can do kind of the same combo you did with Ryu, where you do like a square triangle into like an uppercut, and then potentially just try to, like, you know, knock him down that way. Something else you can do, which again I did not show off very well in this video, but you see this corner that I'm at right now, right in front of that truck. There's going to be a place where you can eventually dash into, and then, or slide into, I should say. And the thing with that is, if you hide over there, the enemies will not be aggroed. Now, granted, the rocket guys on the truck will spawn still, and they still will be aggroed, and they can still hit you. But if you want to get these enemies off your back and just kind of get your bearings again, and maybe even try to go for a cheesy UT, which, by the way, more power to you. There's nothing wrong with using a cheese UT. I don't care. I don't think anybody that does play this game cares that much. You know, go right for it. Do whatever you can to survive. But the thing is, if you want to get them off your back, just run toward this door that we just came through, and then they shouldn't be able to aggro, at the very least. But when they first spawn, you want to run in that corner that I hit into, and just kind of like, you know, just take care of the dogs first. Don't worry about the fiends, because they're bunches of assholes. And something else about dogs, too, that you can do that's nice, besides just UTs, of course, is throwing kunais. It does quite a bit of damage. And the same thing with the fiends, too. Just try to throw as many explosive kunais as you possibly can. If you need to run away, just start throwing explosives. That way you can at least maybe potentially delim an enemy. At the very least, also try to get away, too. So I believe this is a section where I do go down and I do kill the enemies from below, because I'm thinking that if I did that, then at the very least, okay, I still fall down there anyway. It kind of made me think, oh, maybe I might get the Crystal Skull, but yeah, if you do come down here, these guys spawn, and no, you don't get the Crystal Skull, as far as I'm aware. The other 2 things I want to explain real quick, because for the most part, these enemies are relatively just basic. It's just mostly just heavies and then eventually assassins. And by now, you're like 3 chapters in, so you probably kind of have a basic idea of how the regular run-of-the-mill enemies kind of work. Which, again, if I need to explain, just in case, essentially just runaway UT, and that's typically how it works for me, at the very least. Or just try to dodge away and then wait for a Steel on Bone opportunity to come up, and then just use that to your advantage. That's usually the mindset of Ninja Gaiden 3 for the most part when it comes to just regular basic enemies. Unfortunately for the big purple fiends, you can't Steel on Bone them, which is very sad, but, you know, it is what it is. Regular fiends, like small ones, then you can. So, the other 2 things I want to talk about, in episode 1, I mentioned that I got 45 out of 50 scarabs. That's a lie. At least that's a, it's a misinput. It's a misinput. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't necessarily a lie. It was just a misunderstanding from my part. I just kind of fudged up. Also, immediately after you spawn these guys, just run back in this room for safety. Get away from the rockets. It's your best option. And then after a while, come out and deal with them as you see fit. So I didn't end up getting 45 out of 50. That was actually my playthrough after this that I got 45 out of 50. And there's going to be a scarab to your right. eventually. Not back here, but there's another scarab in this very same section, and that's how I figured out. Oh yeah, I didn't have the 45. And the other thing I want to, this is the third thing I want to explain is if you get 40 scarabs in your playthrough, you'll eventually end up with True Inferno, and you want that, especially for like day 6 or 7. The one where you're on the boat and you're fighting that big giant robot boss, but before you fight him, the main guy inside of it, you have to fight those 2 spider tank bosses, and True Inferno just wastes them away. So you want to make sure you have True Inferno built up for that very moment. But yeah, to this right, if you run wall to your right, to your right, you can grab another scarab. So that's one I kind of forgot. But so upon coming down here, as you can see, I'm basically just doing, for the most part, regular simple combos, just, square triangles, the typical stuff. And every once in a while, eventually getting Bloody Rage. And again, I cannot exactly explain 100% how to get Bloody Rage to happen all the time. But for the most part, it seems to kind of just end up working typically if you start getting a bunch of Steel On Bones, and then eventually OTs, and then every once in a while maybe like a UT might trigger it. But for the most part, triggering it just seems kind of odd, so I'm not 100% certain on that. But for the most part, yeah, I'm just going to do the same thing I do pretty much in every one of these groups, and just essentially try to manipulate them into going for Steel On Bone so I can get, quite a bit of damage, and also get a little bit of health back, which I don't think it recovers permanent health. I think it just recovers missing gray health. That's kind of just a regular term for like fighting games and such, so hopefully that makes sense for those that might not play it. But yeah, basically, when you lose health, then you're stuck with like a gray bar, as you can see up there, and that's pretty much what I mean. Which, I mean, granted, anybody with eyeballs can pretty much just see that, of course. No offense to those that don't have it. I'm just, god damn it, I'm digging myself a bigger hole. I'm not trying to be mean. That's just, I have a stupid way of explaining guides. So yeah, after this first group of enemies, which is only just one group anyway, come to think of it, they're not that hard. They can still be a little bit challenging. I think I died there a couple of times possibly, but even then still, they're just regular enemies, just run away UT, that type of thing. So coming up next, this is the part where I'm going to actually spend, I believe, another health bar. If not this one, then might be the other ayane section. So upon jumping down here, you want to take out the rocket guys first, because like I said in chapter 1, or day 1 I should say, rocket guys typically tend to be more a case of just being priority number 1 for the most part. If you're not being enclosed by enemies that are just consistently attacking you like they kind of are here, then for the most part, if you can get away, just go for the rocket guy. Always expect there to be a rocket enemy whenever you kill off like 1, 2, maybe even 3 enemies. Just always kind of expect it. So it seems like it's just mostly just heavies and mostly just basic soldiers. I thought for a second I saw a grenade. I thought it might have been the other enemy type, the ghost soldiers, but it's not them. So when dealing with heavies, especially shielded enemies with Ayane, this one's a little bit more weird because she works exactly the same way that Ryu pretty much kind of does too, just with a little bit more fluff and different changes to her attributes and her stuff. Also, I believe Ryu can do that too with the Izuna drop. I think he can do the same thing where you can do like a slam Izuna drop. But with these guys, of course, triangle attacks break guard, and triangle attacks, of course, break shield, so that's something you definitely want to go for. If they're just consistently blocking you and you're getting pissed off, which I absolutely don't blame you, that's definitely something that happens to me quite often in Ninja Gaiden games anyway. That's what they're built for, and that's what I love them for. If it's starting to piss you off, then just go for triangle attacks. Just don't bother, because like Ayane's triangle attacks are actually really pretty good, honestly. I mean, Ryu's triangle attacks are pretty good. I just think Ninja Gaiden 3 is pretty good for a lot of it, but then I think that like certain aspects of the game also make it kind of just a bit worse for wear. Certain boss fights just are too janky. But as you can see, I instantly spawned in this next section. I died multiple times doing this. So if you do die like I do, just immediately just go for a Nimpo strike. Just use your Nimpo, and if you can possibly just get away from these enemies at any time at all, because these guys give you no room to breathe. First thing you want to do is just run away, but you don't want to get too far. Just get like a mid-screen away from them, and then after that you want to just run and then UT. And something else to be kind of careful of too is you want to have your camera looking at them at all times. It's a little bit hard to do, and I understand that. But it will help you in the long run, because these guys have these laser ball attacks that just do too much damage. Not those black ball attacks, but the ones that are like the white and bluish looking ones. Like they kind of shoot at you in like multiple different directions. Those ones are very dangerous. And then after you do a UT charge, if you can land it on them, even if you don't happen to grab the enemy after it, even if they happen to like take minimal damage or just block it or whatever, if they do block it or whatever, just run away, of course, and go for another UT. But if they don't, if they happen to get stuck inside of it, that's when you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to, like, while in the peak of midair, start holding down the triangle button, and then, or close to the peak of midair. I think it's pretty lenient for the most part. But if you're also like me and you want to, I'd also recommend going for the first health upgrade here. This is usually where I tend to spend my first health upgrade at anyway, just because these guys were absolute dicks. Hiding in corners is not a good idea. I learned that the hard way. So you just kind of want to stay like in the middle and just keep an eye on them and make sure they're not going to do the laser ball attack. And if they don't, then just charge UT, go for a hard, Izuna drop knockdown, and there you go. So anyway, see you guys later.